Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I've actually been spending weeks now preparing dozens of, or sort of planning dozens of tutorial videos for After Effects to create animations which are specific to Mirrorme, um, which I'm going to be releasing quite soon. However, in the meantime, Simon's asked if there's any sort of video, how to quickly animate a logo, etc. So I'm going to take a step further back in the process to before having a logo, and then a step further on to actually create the output file. But let's start off with Photoshop. A new document, 1080 by 1080 pixels, 1080, 1080. The reason for 1080 width is because of the width of your video file. The reason for the height of 1080 is just because it makes a nice square. A resolution of 300 pixels per inch, and the reason I choose a black background will all be clear in a moment. Hit create. So we've got this blank canvas with a black background. The reason I've made it black is because your background in After Effects is going to be black, and then we can sort of best check what colours are going to show up or what colours aren't if we have a black background. So what we're going to do is create a very simple logo. First off, we want to make sure that Snap is selected and that Snap 2, all of these are selected as well. All of that will be clear in a moment. I am using the latest version of Photoshop CC, however this should be backwards compatible with most previous versions as well. Grab the text tool, click anywhere in your canvas, and let's write something out. After you've written what you want, press Command and Enter on a Mac or Control and Enter on a PC to commit those changes. Then either click V on your keyboard or select the Move tool in the toolbar, and then we're going to click and drag until we get to the center line of the document, release, and then holding Shift, click and drag down until we get to the vertical center line of the document as well. Alternatively, another way of doing this is with your layer selected, press Command and A on a Mac or Control and A on a PC and select the horizontal center and then the vertical center so that we know that it's dead center in the center of the canvas. Then press Control and D on a PC or Command and D on a Mac to commit those changes. Click off, and then we've got a very simple logo already. Let's add to this maybe. Let's add maybe a kind of a disc shape to it. So click on the shape tool and then select ellipse tool. Holding the shift key to maintain the width and height ratio. Click and drag until we have a sort of ring. Doesn't really matter where it is, and then let go. Then in the properties panel, if you can't see the properties panel, go to Window, Properties. Under shape details, we're going to select let's go for a kind of a light grey colour. Lovely. Click off that. Hit the V key on your keyboard or select the Move tool from the toolbar. Select your disc, and then again we're going to press Command and A or Control and A to select the whole canvas, and we want to center it on both axes there. Press Command and D or Control and D to commit those changes, and let's drag that circle layer underneath the text layer behind it. Click off. Okay, great. Now we've got what is a relatively simple logo. Let's save this document as, let's call it MMB logo. Hit save, and then what we're going to do is turn off this black background layer so that we've got this transparency grid behind. Go to File, Export, Export as. Export as a PNG with transparency selected, 1080 by 1080, 100% scale. Hit export, save it, and then let's go into After Effects. After Effects, we want a new composition. Let's call it Master. We want a width of 1080 pixels, a height of 1920 pixels, frame rate of 25 to match that of, frame rate of 25, which is a good frame rate universally. It's it's relatively sort of high. Actually, it's quite sort of pretty average across the world. but whatever frame rate you set here, remember for later on, because we want to use it later as well. I'm going to set a frame rate of 25, 10-second duration, a background colour of black. Hit OK. And now we've got this blank composition. I'm going to double click in the project window, and I'm going to import the PNG file that we've just created. Hit open, and I'm going to click and drag that onto the canvas, doesn't matter where. Then we'll go to Window, Align. Make sure Align Layers to Composition is selected, and make sure your logo layer is selected. Hit the horizontal center button and then the vertical center button so that we know it's in the middle of the screen. Now let's have some fun with animating it. We've got a couple of options in terms of rotation. So if we select that layer, press the R key on your keyboard, you get the rotation property pop up underneath. The first number, X, is the number of revolutions, and then plus number of degrees. So if we just click and drag, we've got simple rotation here, which goes all the way up to 359 before changing to 1 revolution and 0 degrees, etc. So that's one way of rotating a logo. Very easy to do. You can right click on rotation and hit reset to go back to where it was originally. Another technique is getting the logo to rotate as if it's turning away from you. There's two ways of doing this. One is just using a 2D property of scale. So press S on your keyboard to get the scale property. Unlink the proportions, and then we're going to use this first property to scale down the width of the logo so it looks like it tricks the eye into thinking that it's actually rotating away from you. So 100 down to 0 looks like the logo is animating away from you. And then 100 back up to 0 back up to 100, and it looks like the logo's is turning back into view. What we're going to do is animate that quickly. So with the cursor at the 0 mark, press the little stopwatch next to scale in order to drop a keyframe there, which is at 100%. Then we're going to scrub along to the 5-second point. As you can see over here, we're at 5 seconds, and we're going to change the scale down to 0. And then we're going to scrub along to the 10-second mark, and we're going to scale it back up to 100%. Whenever you're at a new place on a property which has got keyframes enabled, whenever you change property, it will drop a keyframe in there. But as you can see, go to any point on the timeline, hit spacebar, and you can see this very, very simple rotation, which is effectively tricking the eye into thinking that this logo is rotating away from the viewer. When in the actual fact is it isn't, it's just squashing it left and right and then opening up again. Now for a bit more realism, what we're going to do is click scale to select all of the keyframes, hit delete on your keyboard, right click on scale and reset. We're actually going to go back into the rotation property, so select your layer, press R, and then we're going to enable 3D, or make this a 3D layer by clicking the checkbox underneath the cube icon. This gives us a load of extra properties. So the rotation that we're used to is the Z rotation, just round and round and round, very, very easy. We now also have X rotation and Y rotation. X rotation is towards you from the top or away from you from the top, as you can see like that with proper depth. And then the Y rotation is spinning on its Y axis properly. So that's the one we're going to use. So we're going to scroll back to the start, drop enable keyframes on the Y rotation property at 0, 0. And then we're going to scrub all the way along to 10 seconds, and we're going to have one rotation in 10 seconds. Hit enter, and what will happen when you press spacebar is you get this realistic rotation effect all the way along. And because it gets back to the start at the very end, it will look like it's looping seamlessly and indefinitely. If you want, you can scroll along to the end point and set maybe 2 times if you want a faster rotation. And there's various other things that you can do here as well, which I will show you at another time. But what we'll do for the time being is just have that Y rotation rotate twice in 10 seconds. Next, click off, click onto the background. We're going to press Command and T or Control and T, or select the text type tool on the toolbar. Click anywhere sort of near the top of the screen, and we're going to just simply type touch to start, Command and Enter or Control and Enter to commit the changes, V on your keyboard for the selection tool. Let's drag it somewhere near the middle, take the text size up slightly, and then on the Align panel, we're going to center it horizontally. So now we've got to touch the Start button at the top. Let's also select that layer and press Command and D or Control and D on a PC. Click, drag down to the bottom, and then using the Type tool, click on that text field. Let's delete it and put, for instance, yourwebsite.com. Command and Enter or Control and Enter to commit the changes. Let's bring the text size down to something that fits, and then once again let's center it in the middle. Hit V on your keyboard and then click off, and we now have a very, very simple but quite effective rotation that you can use on anything. You can use it on a logo, you can use it on text, you can actually create this logo and text within After Effects itself. However, I wanted to use this as an example of importing a PNG file and I rotated it. Right, next step, File, Export, Add to Media Encoder Queue. Right, we want the format of H.264. I've made a preset for Mirami exports. It's a bit irrelevant to this, however, just make sure that your output is the same size as the input, 1080 by 1920, 25 frames per second. Hit the output name to choose where you're going to save the file, and I will put it in the same folder that we've been dealing with, call it MMB logo, save, OK, and then hit the start button. Okay, next thing to do is click on that output file. Let's give it a quick preview. Play. If you go to View, Loop, it'll continue playing indefinitely. Okay, let's close QuickTime. It's not close QuickTime because I'm using it for screen recording. Close that one, and then we'll go to Cloud Convert, cloudconvert.com, and we're going to drag and drop that video file we made into here to create an FLV file. MP4 video, select FLV, then click on the little spanner for the additional settings. Ignore everything you can see up here, scroll down to the bottom to use a custom command, and then we're going to go input file, close bracket, space, dash Q, which is for quality, space 0, and then make sure there's a space after that as well. So from start to end, it's space, dash Q, space 0, space, and then output file. This means that the output quality is going to be the same as the input quality, and all we're doing is encoding the extension from an MP4 to an FLV. The reason I've done the same quality coming out as going in is because this file is only 6.5 meg. It's not a particularly big file, so it's not going to do sort of any damage as an SWF. Whenever I've got a file which is 10, 15 plus meg, I reduce the quality on here in order to get the output size less than 10 meg. Okay, hit OK. Start conversion. Great, hit download. Then we're going to open Adobe Animate, ActionScript 3 document. Make sure the size is 1080 width by 1920 height with a frame rate of 25 frames per second. Then we can simply go to View, Zoom Out, View, Zoom Out, or press Command or Control and the arrow, the plus and minus key on your keyboard. Then we're going to import the FLV file that we've just created. So file, import to stage, and then vlogo FLV, open. We want it as an FLV, so we want to embed that FLV file in the SWF. So select that, hit next, next, finish, and then we have it on our stage. If your FLV file loads potentially off center like that, click it once, window, align, make sure align to stage is selected, center it horizontally, center it vertically, and then click off. Okay, next, ensuring that we've got a frame rate of 25 frames per second, we're going to click on Publish Settings, untick HTML wrapper because we don't need it, untick Hidden Layers because we don't need it, leave Compress Movie on because it makes a slightly smaller file size. I always increase JPEG quality to 100, but there aren't any JPEGs in this document. Hit the folder icon to select the publish destination, and stick it in the same folder, give it the same name, hit save, and then the most important part, we're going to hit the publish button, and we're done. Hit OK. Now what we find is in that folder, you now have an SWF file, which will play seamlessly, continuously, and you can load that SWF file into your MirrorMe workflow. Make sure you set the trigger to touch rather than time or any other options that are there, so that it just plays continuously until someone presses the screen. I hope this was quite helpful. Thank you for listening, and please ignore the sound of my voice. I'm having an operation in a few weeks to remove whatever it is that's making me sound like this.